This is Ed Petke with the Americans in Wartime Experience. Today's date is June 3rd, 2022, and I am conducting an interview with Mr. Richard Borutta at the Mid-Atlantic Air Museum's World War II weekend in Reading, Pennsylvania. Sir, would you please give us your full name and where you were born?
My name is Richard Borutta, born in New York City, raised in Queens, New York, and then we moved to Long Island when I was about 11, 12 years old.
And what war did you participate in?
Vietnam.
Do you have any other military veterans in your family?
My father was a World War II veteran. He flew in B-17, today.
Right. And where did he serve?
In England. And base was in England, and they bombed Germany.
He was bombing around. Okay. So, did you enlist or were you drafted?
I enlisted.
You enlisted. So why did you enlist?
I basically wanted to get out of town. I wasn't too satisfied with my high school experience, you know, all that. In 1965, I was 17 years old. I just turned 17 after I graduated high school. And the Navy offered me training in electronics. I was preparing to get a ham radio license.
Okay.
And since I knew the Morse code, the Navy was going to make me a radio man, and it was just a perfect match, you know,
right.
what I wanted.
So is that what you ended up doing? You were a radio man?
Yeah.
Okay. And you served on what kind of a ship?
It was a destroyer, an old World War II destroyer called Allen F. Sumner, 8692. And it was a class leader for those destroyers that came out built in the middle of the war, you know, engaged the Japanese.
So where did you did you go to Great Lakes?
Yeah, Great
Okay.
Lakes, basic training, and then I went to Bainbridge, Maryland for radio school. And I graduated at the top of my class, so you usually get your choice of duty. And they gave me what I wanted, which was a minesweeping duty. USS Bold was out of South Carolina. But before orders came for me, they changed my orders to send me to radio teletype school in Norfolk, and then on to the destroyer.
Okay. So was the destroyer was it based down in Norfolk?
No, it's in Jacksonville, Florida, Mayport, Florida.
Mayport, Florida. Okay. So you went to boot camp out in Great Lakes. You go to Bainbridge, Maryland, and then they ship where you were supposed to go originally. Then they send you down to Florida. Okay. How long were you just been down in Florida?
Well, we were in and out.
Yeah.
So the rest of my service was out on that ship.
Okay.
Some of the 2.5 years, 3 years.
And at some point, you went over to Vietnam?
Yeah. In fact, right when I first reported to the ship.
Okay. What year was that?
In late '66. They were all talking about the upcoming
right.
trip to Vietnam was coming up.
Okay.
Beginning of '67.
Okay. So when you had enlisted in '65, Vietnam obviously was going on, but not for us. As much as it had ramped up.
Right, sure.
What was it a forlong thought in your mind? I'm definitely going to go there.
Initially, I wanted to participate when I was younger in Vietnam. When I was first starting up, I thought it was a decent idea. But then there's a lot of news items about the South Vietnamese government. Pretty corrupt, I thought. You know, there's a lot of assassinations and coups going on. I don't know, something about this situation is a little bizarre, you know. So I wasn't that thrilled, you know, enlisting to go and you know, for that reason. The reason I wanted to be in the service was to get out of the tent, get out of my hometown and family and stuff.
Okay. And Navy because of the radio?
Yeah.
Okay. Was that that was your first choice? Or?
Yeah, and it seemed like they were a little more cooperative, in line with my ideas. You know, I didn't really have any goals to get for sure, but something like I definitely didn't want to go to college.
Okay.
That was another thing, a lot of pressure on me to go to college.
Okay. College, get a job, or go in the military, right?
Yeah.
So, when you're aboard ship, obviously, I mean, you spend time in port, you go underway for a bit, you do some short trips, you do some long trips. What if you're in port? What's your normal duties when you're sitting back at port and you're not out underway doing things?
Radio, it's a 24/7 operation. So someone's in the ship. We have a small staff, small watch group in port.
So this is ship to ship, ship to base, ship to shore?
Mostly the shore to ship, ship to shore if you want to call it. The Navy has these fleet broadcast transmissions from radio teletype.
Okay.
And they go on 24 hours a day, and the duty of the radioman was to scan all these messages that are printed out continuously and pull the ones, rip the ones off the teletype machine that pertain to us and our operations beyond. So even in port, at sea it's more, but in port there's always stuff to do. And then these messages have to be typed up and delivered to different officers in charge of different departments. So they keep up to date on it.
Right. And obviously, if they've got a message that's got to get to shore another ship, it's coming through you.
Yeah, and that orders, sometimes the orders for material.
So one of the lifebloods of the ship, as far as at least getting information, sending information, and knowing where you're going, goes through you. Yeah. So you went over to Vietnam in '66. You said late 67. Okay.
Late '66 when we were preparing. Before that, we had one assignment with Gemini missile launch.
Okay.
It was
Talk about that.
We were about 100 miles off the Cape of Kennedy, and something went wrong with the mission in the first 90 seconds. They could disconnect the capsule and separate it from the spacecraft. They couldn't make orbital loss, and they would come down in the Atlantic, and we were in recovery ship.
Right.
We had people from the NASA on board. One main liaison guy, he brought his own radio with him, hooked it to our antennas, and we could talk to the Cape and to the capsule right before the launch.
Right.
So that was kind of interesting.
Do you remember which Gemini missile it was? Which mission it was?
8 or 10.
Okay. So did you actually get to see the launch itself?
No.
Okay.
You
were just waiting to see if.
We hear it on the radio.
Okay. And obviously they never ditched, so.
Yeah, and after 90 seconds, we were out of
We're done.
picture, so
okay. You said about 100 miles out?
Yeah. It was kind of interesting to be, for the first time I was part of a really big operation.
Right.
Like that,
Sure.
Kind of
And back at that time, space travel and space launches were relatively new, so just being involved with it, you're in this new era, this new wave. So, absolutely. So when you went over to Vietnam, do you remember where you pulled in first?
We stopped going across the Pacific. We had to go through the Panama Canal, Hawaii, and I think we landed in Japan first, Kuska, Japan.
Okay.
There's a naval base there. Got some upkeep there, and then assignment in Vietnam. The first things we did was go. It was a Pirates station up there. It was a northern point in the Tonkin Gulf, far north of a lot of things, where the Long Beach cruiser Long Beach was stationed, guided missile cruiser. And her job was to, if the North Vietnamese put any MiGs up in the air and it looked like they were headed south, especially towards Yankee Station, she could shoot them down with a missile.
Okay.
And we went along as an escort destroyer, because at night they would send torpedo boats out once in a while to harass
you and mess with you.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have a navy per se,
Right,
but they had
yeah.
the small little
Yeah.
close shore crafts that just to mess with you.
Yeah. And then also, so the cruiser didn't have to leave station. We could do mail runs for them and stuff like that. Yeah. We did that for a while. And then while we were on that, we got a notification that we were going to be assigned to Operation Sea Dragon.
Okay.
Interdicting, the main focus was interdicting waterborne logistics craft.
Okay.
It was a small craft the North Vietnamese used to load up with ammunition and men and supplies and sneak them down the North Vietnamese coast to the DMZ,
okay.
unload them down there, and then send it to the Viet Cong.
Okay.
And,
so were you to intercept them?
yeah, and it varied from motorized barges to small, maybe 50, 100 ton coastal freighters, things like that.
Right.
And the focus on the reason for being able to sink them, basically.
Okay, so you weren't interested in stopping and capturing them. You just wanted them.
Yeah.
You blow them out of the water. That way, their mission is incomplete.
Yeah. Stop.
Did you have? Were there any instances where you had to do that?
Oh yeah, we had. I don't know what the total, but we had dozens. Maybe 70 or so in the course of our engagements.
So would that be done through torpedoes, through small machine gunfire?
5-inch guns.
Okay.
For everything, pretty much. They didn't install 50 caliber machine guns for any close-in eventualities. Needed some, but we never really used it.
Okay.
And along with that, both Sea Dragon, we also would engage, take on shore targets.
Okay.
Coastal defense sites and truck parks, bridges, truck.
Taking care of their infrastructure and knocking it down. Okay.
And we go into river mouths, the harbors, run in, start shelling it. They start shooting at us and chase us out.
Gun and run.
Yeah. And usually, most ships will only spent 2-3 weeks of doing that. It was pretty stressful duty.
Sure.
But we were up there once or twice, and an officer was given command of the whole operation. The way it was set up when we were first there, it was 6 destroyers doing this. We worked in pairs. So it was, each covered a section. There was 3 large sections we patrolled and went in as a pair.
Okay.
When we went into attack. When we were rigged to tow, be towed. That way, if one ship got disabled, the other one could pull it out.
Sure.
And cover for it. So, and anyway, this Commodore, he's a high-ranking captain. He was in charge of all 6 destroyers. He decided to make us his flagship. Oh. Even though we were an old World War II beat-up destroyer. There was an incident that happened early on, I think, before he took command. We had with, I remember this one, we sighted a Russian oil tanker making into a port in North Vietnam to deliver oil. And we were supposed to stop all shipping, but our captain didn't know about, sinking a Russian oil tanker.
Right.
We were on the radio back and forth trying to get some orders of what to do. And so we followed it into the harbor, and it was tying up at the pier. We were going to run the oil lines. And again, the captain's running. I'm running around with messages from the radio to the bridge. The captain doesn't know what to do. And one of the gunner's mates tells him, "Well, what if I blow up the pier?" And the captain says, "You think you can do that? You're that good?" He says, "Well, let's try it." So I remember I was up on the bridge and I'm watching. really close to the shore, firing like point blank, no elevation on the guns, it's just point blank. And I'm seeing him shooting at this water tower that's on a hill. And once he got the range of the water tower, he walked the shells down the hill to the pier. You know, and by that time, the Russians, they just cut the lines and got out of there. And,
let's get out.
Yeah. And I think the Commodore might have heard about that incident and decided this is the ship he wanted as his, flagship. You know.
Have some fun on the ship.
Yeah.
Guy's got some guts.
But
so you never had to actually shoot the Russian ship.
Right.
But
still got rid of them.
Accomplish your mission.
Yeah. Right. So that was pretty interesting.
Very cool. Yeah. And that's with the 5-inch guns, just walking them down.
Yeah. And so the Commodore come up over his staff, and then, of course the radio men, we had to take care of them too. So we had. Part of my duties was a messenger too, you know. So I'd be running into the Commodore's cabin or the captain's cabin, bringing messages, getting the responses, and I got to see the two of them up close and in action, and they were two different people.
Oh yeah.
You know, our captain was he was an officer during World War II on merchant ships. You know, Atlantic, I guess.
Yep.
Convoys and stuff. And after he got out, he got called back in on when Korea came on. You know? So he went back in the Navy.
Okay.
So he was a bit older than most people were in that rank. And he was mainly interested in getting out with a pension, you know, with a decent rank to. But the Commodore was an Annapolis grad.
Okay.
And he wanted, you know, to be effective and get stuff done. And it turned out that the Commodore went to the same high school I did in Long Island, and his parents contacted mine, and they got together sometimes.
Oh wow! Small world.
Yeah. It's kind of neat. So, but they had two different points of view on what to do.
Sure.
And the Commodore, he would take us into places in North Vietnam where a lot of other ships wouldn't go.
Okay.
They were heavily defended.
Okay.
And, but he had a good judgment of what could be done and what couldn't be done, and like I said, my ship was under fire more than any other ship in that operation.
Okay.
Well, one, because we kept going back, because we were his flagship, so instead of just spending 2 weeks there, we'd go back for another 2 weeks, another 3. Total, we spent close to 3 months.
Oh wow.
There, you know, and that accounted for us being under fire a lot. Of course, we're going into, like I said, places where a lot of the other ships, you know, would avoid.
Sure.
But there were tricks that we had learned about. Our lookouts were very good, and when they did so muzzle flashes, we start maneuvering to avoid shells.
Right.
Techniques of steering into the fire, you know, one where shells are hitting the starboard, you turn starboard. You know they're going to correct. They're going to correct the other way, and you're already there. Yeah. So, and our aftermount, we guys are very good at returning fire, suppress their fire. So the ship was pretty well run. And then for a while there, about every 2 weeks, the ship was getting hit. I was a radioman. I used to see all the reports on it. And we were under fire more than any of this ship and never had direct hit.
Oh, wow.
We had shrapnel all over the place.
Right.
You know.
So no major damage sustained.
Right.
Okay. Never not in danger of sinking.
Right.
But, okay.
So,
Which, good.
Yeah. It was like, when's it going to happen? But, you know, it never did. So.
So your radio office, is it more in the interior of the ship, somewhere protected, or?
Well, just below the bridge.
Just below the bridge, okay.
Left, you know.
So you were able to see out? You had a window?
No,
or?
we didn't have windows. No.
Okay.
We could hear all these shells going off all over the place. A few times I saw it exploding in the air and stuff, but most of the time, when that happened, I'd go back to the radio. You know, I'm not going to hang out outside and get wounded for my job is in there.
Right.
If I got to run up the bridge, I'd do that, but you know.
Nice. So how long were you actually over in country over there?
We were there a total of 7 months.
7 months.
Yeah.
Did you move up and down the coast, or you kind of concentrate in the same?
Well, we
or
had
just
other
switch
assignments,
zones.
even in between some of the deployments for Sea Dragon. We might spend a week or two at Yankee Station doing carrier, ops.
Okay.
Them or a few other things.
You're in an escort ship mostly.
Up for that, yeah.
Yeah.
And told you about the cruiser up at Pirate Station. Primarily with that Sea Dragon. At the end, though, the last month we were there, we got assigned to the Army at 2 Corps in the Trang. Gunfire support.
Okay. So you were also doing some troop supports on the softening up areas that they're advancing towards?
Yeah, whatever, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kind of getting their backs and protecting them as well.
Yeah, when they call for fire. Fire.
So the 5-inch guns, how many of those did you have on the ship?
There was 6 of them, 3 dual mounts.
Okay.
Sumner was the first of the classic ships that had the dual mount.
So 6 dual mounts. So 3 dual mounts, 6 total.
6 guns.
Okay. All 4 or any aft?
2 mounts forward and 1 aft.
Okay.
And one ship we worked with a lot was the HMAS Hobart, which was an Australian ship.
Oh, okay.
And what we do with her and our role even with a lot of the other ships, especially ones that were newer than us, they had 5-inch 54 guns, which had a little longer range. Let them go in first and engage the target, and we'd sit back and fire suppression on coastal defense sites.
Okay.
So, keep delay the enemy reaction.
Right.
Attack. And Hobart, these guys were pretty good. We were in a port together.
How often would you get into a port as opposed to being out?
About once a month.
Okay. Same port or different ones?
Mostly it was Subic Bay in the Philippines, but once in a while we go back to Japan, Sasebo.
That was to rearm, resupply.
Yeah,
repairs. You can get a little.
Oh, rearming we did at sea.
Okay.
Yeah. We could refuel, rearm, replenish all in one shot sometimes.
Okay. With launching the cables across.
Yeah. And when they had the cables and helicopters dropping in, cables for fuel, do all 3 at once.
Yeah. Which is a pretty impressive sight to see when you're there doing it. How you can get those 2 ships right next to each other and get all that stuff, and even people sometimes.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Which has to, I'm sure.
Once in a while we had people get hurt.
A little nerve-wracking trip across that wire. Have you ever had to do that?
No.
No.
Well, my buddy did. When I first got over there, I was still doing mess cook.
Okay.
You have a rotation and doing that. And I was this Spudcocks title. We make salads and peeled potatoes. And my partner there, their buddy, cut the tip of his thumb off on his slicing machine. We were all getting nipped by his thing. And the ship took a roll and his thumb went in, and so we had to lift him.
Get him off. Oof. No Purple Heart for that, though.
Yeah. I think he went off in a helicopter, though. I remember right.
Okay.
But, so things like that happen.
Right. So, while you're over there, are you able to keep in touch with home?
Yeah, you could write letters. I wasn't good at it. But that was where that Commodore and his family came in handy.
Okay.
He had close to time.
So he was able to
they
give news and stuff. Okay. So, what's a day like as in the radio? I mean, what's your shift like? Is it 12 on, 12 off, 10?
Well, we did 6 on, 12 off.
Okay. Were you hot racking, or was it?
No,
you had your own berth.
And, with 3 watches. And that's how we.
Okay. Any room for any kind of downtime, or try to keep busy?
Well, some card playing on the mess decks.
Yeah.
A little bit of that. In combat, though, it really wasn't. Everyone was just too worn out and stuff like that. So.
Okay. Any incidents of when you were over there that really stand out as being particularly frightening? Something that really sticks out. Like if you think about that times, like your mind goes right to that incident, and then noteworthy that stands out.
Well, one time I was on deck and we were following this other ship. I forget which one it was, and saw these black puffs of smoke appearing above the other ship. I thought they were premature detonations. Sometimes the shells, they fire, there's something wrong with the fuse.
Okay.
They'll detonate right after they leave the barrel.
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of these on the ship. I didn't know what it was, so I just had this instinct to get below. And it was anti-aircraft fire they were shooting at that ship.
Okay.
And we were under it. Right after I got below, we were under it. You know, so my instinct about getting below was accurate. You know,
okay.
About the only thing.
Anybody stay up and have any incidents with that one, or everybody get safe below?
I don't know what happened on the bridge. I mean, these guys on the bridge and the signal bridge were always out there with these things. And we had a couple of people we had to tell them to get down. They were like taking pictures of and stuff like that. You know, didn't really have any fear of anything.
Sure.
They had to,
Wounded at all over there?
Yeah.
No. How about citations or awards or medals?
Well, we got regular. And the meritorious unit commendation was like a bronze star given to the whole crew.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then the service medal with 3 battle stars on it.
Okay.
2 battle stars.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing to combat action original.
Right.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't have that first, but later.
Right. Did you hit it? You said you went to the Philippines to do some of your resupply, and Japan. Any other stops that you made over in that area?
R&R was in Hong Kong.
Okay. How was R&R in Hong Kong? Tell me a little bit about that.
It was pretty good. It was funny good. It was. We pulled in there. We were in there for a few days, and got this warning of a typhoon approaching. So the captain was ready to leave. Pull out. All the other ships were pulling anchor, pulling out.
Yeah.
And the Commodore, he was having a good time in Hong Kong, and he was a pretty sharp guy. He looked at. I was bringing him the weather messages. He was looking at it. He says, "It's not going to hit. It's not going to hit." The captain, and he kept us in port. And Commodore.
Too good a time to leave.
Yeah, and it didn't hit. He was right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
So we were the only ship in port for a few days.
Okay. Nice. So you said you were over there for about 7 months?
Yeah.
Now, after that 7 months, had your enlistment come to an end, or did you guys just move on somewhere else?
I had another year or 2.
So where did you go after you left Vietnam?
Came back here and did more operations.
Okay. But
Florida.
didn't go back over a second time?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you came back and you did your operations here, is it just I guess your normal sea duties and stuff over on this end, or what do you do when you come back? What's the main focus of when you came back stateside?
In Key West, there's a sonar school, submariners and surface ship training. We did a lot of stuff with them all the time.
Okay.
And we also spent a lot of time in Guantanamo.
Okay.
We did have a shipyard period. We spent almost a year in the shipyard in Charleston.
Okay.
And after that, we had to go to Guantanamo Bay for training. We trained people on new equipment and everything.
Right.
And that was pretty involved. And we were over there during Christmas time, and we were, again, the only destroyer, American destroyer. It was a Korean destroyer here, but they had to have a destroyer on patrolling outside the base. Where, always at sea.
Right.
And we had that to do that. Keep track of anything.
Right. And things are pretty hot down there at that time, as far as Cuba and the Russians.
Yeah.
Any incidents down there that you can recall? Any close calls, or pretty
Some
quiet?
Boats come out to harass us. And our captain.
Mm-hmm.
I remember they came up and were challenging us, like, who are you, and stuff like that. And
Right.
the captain said, the U.S. Navy, now get the hell out of here.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of thing.
Okay.
Well, we did also, when we were down here, we saw these UFOs.
Really?
And me and another guy were on deck one night. Both of us had an interest in astronomy.
Okay.
And, we were offshore patrolling, and we saw over the base these lights zooming around. Zoom around like they shoot up into the sky. And we didn't know what they were. The next night we're out there, and again they were out. I went into radio and called the airbase on the radio and asked them if they had anything up. They denied that they had anything up.
Right.
Somebody that was one of our.
Right. It's something, but they're not telling you.
Yeah. And then the night after that, there was like 50 people on the ship all saw them. You know, it was like.
Word spreads.
Yeah.
And so night after night they would be out there. Same type of lights, same area, same.
Yeah.
And you never got any confirmation of what it was. So is that what you assumed it was? Some kind of an aircraft or a weapon that they were testing?
That's what I did eventually. You know, I didn't know.
This was down in Cuba.
Yeah. Yeah, it could have been drones or something like that. There were also, you know, I changed my opinion of these things over the years.
Right.
At the time when I was in there. We were also part of an operation in Vietnam called Low Charge, where in '67 they put 8,000 Marines in the DMZ.
Okay.
They pulled us off of Sea Dragon down to the DMZ to help support this invasion. There was 42 ships involved,
Wow.
the biggest amphibious assault since Korea. And put these 8,000 Marines in the DMZ. I remember of all the 42 ships, we were the only ones that came under fire.
Oh, wow.
We had a very intense battle with the North Vietnamese battery.
Okay. From shore.
From shore,
Okay.
yeah. And they were the coastal batteries up north. If you put 25, 30 rounds on them, they would stop shooting. These guys were not going to stop until we killed them.
Oh wow.
You know?
Okay.
And so you know, several hundred rounds involved. In that.
Wow.
You know,
Eventually they stopped.
And eventually they stopped because we, you know,
Right. So how long did that last? That operation that you were on?
That invasion?
Yeah.
It went for a couple of days.
A couple days.
And that was an interesting one, though, too, because in the first 30 minutes of the invasion, the Anglo was killed, Naval Gunfire Liaison.
Oh wow.
He's supposed to coordinate the naval ships. So
on your ship?
No, he wasn't on our ship. He was on shore.
Oh, on shore. Okay.
And what happened was they kept this thing top secret. So top secret that the code name was out there, but no one knew anything about the details about it.
Okay.
So they sent the whole op order, which is a book about that thick, through the teletype that night.
Oh wow.
So we were getting pages of this, pages of that, you know, trying to collate them and, you know, distribute them. And after the Anglo got killed, who do we give gunfire support to? You don't know.
Right.
So we had to go through the op order and try to figure out what units are in the areas near us that we can support, you know, and go through this document.
Yeah. Wow.
And then contact them by the radio frequency that was assigned to them initially. So
eventually you found someone?
Yeah. Along with that, though, not long, you know, I had thought initially that they might have going to use that to move up the coast. We've been softening the coast up with naval gunfire for many months. And, you know, we used that as a way to kind of slowly inch up the coast of North Vietnam, into North Vietnam.
Okay.
But within a few months, they pulled all the Marines out of there. Now, at that time, they knew, intelligence knew there were about 24,000 North Vietnamese per month going through the DMZ.
Okay.
They were building up for the Tet Offensive.
Okay,
And
right.
I think our people knew something big was coming, so
Right.
we wanted to stop that. But put the Marines there, number one. But then they pulled the Marines out, and I didn't understand what the rationale of that was. They fought hard to get there.
Sure.
And take them out. What they did is they deployed these listening devices all through the DMZ.
Okay.
And when I got out of the Navy, before I went to school, I worked for a company in Long Island that made these devices. They took sonar buoys, which was an older technology, adapted them for terrestrial use. They would drop them out of planes, or like these guys, Marines did into devices similar to that, and put them in the ground all across the territory. And these things could sense movement, any kind of truck or vehicle movement, foot movement, conversations. They could monitor people,
right?
And send signals to orbiting aircraft.
Okay.
You could identify it and then call them B-52s or other airstrikes on top of it.
Okay.
That was what they were going to use.
Oh wow, yeah.
And when I went to work for that Hazeltine company up in Long Island, they were making thousands every day. I worked on them. I mean, we were making these things like crazy, dropping them all over Vietnam. So technology, sometimes gets into a war, and it's at a level that it wasn't top secret, but it was kept.
Right. People weren't shouting it from the rooftops either.
How they were doing.
Right. That's interesting how you started doing that, and then they were being implemented.
Yeah.
Interesting how that kind of turns around.
It gave me a better appreciation for what the old.
Sure. Yeah. So how long did you stay down in Florida when you came back? Or stationed there?
Another couple of years, I guess I had to serve.
So, okay. So
18 months. 18
months. So was there ever any thought process in your mind to re-enlist when you were done?
Yeah, part of it was because I had a pretty good job and I kind of liked what I was doing. There was also a prospect of going back to Vietnam again, and I really
right.
I got lucky the first round. So we were under fire a lot and never direct hit.
Came out unscathed.
I remember the Commodore estimating. I heard him on the phone. We had a piece of scrambled radio here. They could talk to other Commodores with. And he told them he estimated they had about 1,500 rounds fired at us.
Wow.
Now that was both two ships together.
Okay.
I think on our side we could triggered 700 and something. So that's probably within 100 yards of the ship.
Right. Wow.
And never got a direct hit. So they were on borrowed time. And every 2 weeks it said ship was getting tagged.
Wow.
And, maybe not a lot of casualties, but some people were wounded.
Well, yeah. And you came through the whole time without a direct. I mean, that's pretty amazing.
The tactics we had, and
sure.
who we had. And there was another thing too. Recently, there was a TV show on about Misty Pilots. These were reconnaissance pilots. I remember them. And I think we used to use some of their information.
Okay.
They would fly fast and low over North Vietnam with a pilot and observed on an F-100.
Okay.
And they'd send reports with these guys were trained to identify camouflage sites and any changes they saw in them,
Right.
And they could, based on their information, we could keep track of how the North Vietnamese moved their coastal defense sites. Okay. Every 3 days they would reposition the guns. And the SAM missile sites, we would attack them sometimes. Too.
Okay.
And the anti-aircraft guns. They knew if they stayed more than 3 days, they'd be, identified and wiped out. So, but we'd have to keep track of them because we'd be under fire from them. So we had a big map and radio to the coast with dozens of these, little red circles of possible sites that were on. And some of the information from those reconnaissance planes told us which ones we might have.
Oh, okay.
So help us.
Good info to have.
Yeah. And the Commodore, I could see, he was plugged into all that stuff. And he was good at using it,
Right. So, decide not to re-enlist. Where do you go from there?
I went to, I wanted to go out and stay in electronics and fix TVs.
Okay.
One other thing I wanted to mention too, while we were up there, in radio, they had a special network, a top secret radio network, for units like us that were operating in the Vietnam War, but not in Vietnam itself.
Okay.
So we had Laos, Cambodia, us on there, all the tactical and combat interactions were on that network. So I got also a picture of a lot of these other units.
Oh, okay.
Activity going on around the, in the area.
Right.
And say a lot of this stuff was not spoken about.
Right.
Kept quiet from the public.
Sure.
Stuff like that. So I had a hard time trusting the usual reports.
Sure.
Because I knew that there was a lot of stuff going on.
Right. They weren't even going to tell you.
Yeah.
And you were there.
Yeah. So I got out. I wanted to stay in electronics. I went to RCA Institute in New York City. And I wanted to fix TVs or something like that. They talked me into the engineering program.
Okay.
And I went in that and did pretty good there. First in the class again. And Bell Labs recruiters were there, and they recruited me and the 2 other guys to come down to Bell Labs in New Jersey.
Okay.
That's what I did. I started off as an engineering associate. And in Princeton, New Jersey, they had a small facility outside of Princeton called the Engineering Research Center. We were aligned mostly with the Western Electric factories. We were like in between the Bell Labs inventors would come up with stuff.
Okay.
We'd find ways to use it directly in the factory.
Okay.
So Allentown and Reading, there's a couple of big ones around here. And I went to work at the laser studies group, using high-powered lasers for material processing.
Okay.
Drilling holes and diamonds and welding stuff.
Interesting.
That on and off part of my career.
While with Bell?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then when fiber optics started out, I got involved with that. A couple of guys were hot on the new thing. We were fibers, communication fibers were going on. So
Game changer.
Yeah, when that came out, I got pulled into that too.
Okay.
I wound up with 4 patents in the fiber optic.
Oh, wow.
The 5th one later for something else I did. So I had a varied career.
Wow, very cool. How has your wartime experience affected your life?
Positively in general, overall. Periods, down periods. Well, first of all, I did get the GI Bill, which helped me get to school.
Okay.
But I think it taught me to work with the team and appreciate, how we can accomplish with the team. not a big war hawk as far as that goes.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the things I saw up there was kind of disturbing. Along the North Vietnamese coast, a big part of what they do up there is just plain old fishing. They have these little sampans, they row them out, they have bamboo poles stuck in the water, and the nets tied to that. They check the nets and bring them in. I remember when I was over there, one of them waved at me one time, you know. It's supposed to be ahead of me, you know.
Right.
And this guy's waving at me. But also, the North Vietnamese coastal defense sites used to zero their guns on these fishing nets when we weren't there.
Okay.
So when we went through an area where there's fishing nets, even if their own people were there, they attacked us and put them under fire.
Right.
It was sort of like they were using their own people as target practice.
Right.
You know?
No regard.
Yeah, and it was like, you know, hard to understand a mentality like that. You know,
Yeah.
like, you know, that there are places in the world where, you know, the people are don't think like us. You know? You just can't treat them in the same way. You know?
Right.
But the fishermen, though, were mostly Buddhists.
Okay.
And they didn't care who was running the country. You know, they had their own lives, you know.
It's interesting to see that other culture, like you said, where, you know, you realize how good you have it back in our country when you go and see things like that where they don't care about their own people, and it's better to kill their own if they can kill you guys.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just a different
That's
very
like
way of
Ukraine
thinking.
Today.
Right.
Today, you know,
Right.
It surprised me with the way they
Sure.
the Russians did that too.
Right.
There was another weird operation with those fishermen. They were. We used to get these messages from Da Nang that Plowman mission so and so code name was launched. You know, and there were PTF nasty boats. They called them PT boats. They didn't have torpedoes anymore, but they had rocket launchers and guns on. And they were Navy SEAL teams that come up the coast.
Okay.
And we had, in radio, we had this little chest with little top secret stuff in it. And they would, we'd get the message, one of the officers would come in, pull the file out for that thing, and then have a track that vessel was supposed to follow. Timetable, you know.
Yeah.
And the idea was that we weren't supposed to acknowledge they were there or report them as radar contacts or anything like that. You know, they were supposed to just, you know, let them go through, and they combine with us too, you know. Go on inserting teams or extracting men. Also, I heard they were doing assassinations. And another thing, someone said they were doing kidnapping. You know, that was. And then years later, I saw an article in one of the magazines that the CIA had an operation for kidnapping those fishermen.
Oh.
And they take them to an island off there and indoctrinate them in U.S. culture. Give them radios and stuff with presents, you know, to appreciate us, and try to turn them into agents for us, you know.
Ah, interesting.
But, like I said, they were indifferent to the war. They didn't, you know,
right. And they felt like they had no war didn't affect them. They had no place in it.
Yeah, right. The outcome didn't bother them. So,
being Buddhist, I mean, you would understand that clearly, yeah. So I know for a lot of the guys who served in Vietnam, the homecomings were challenging. I'll use the word challenging a lot. How was your homecoming when you actually separated and came back home? Was there?
Well, I didn't separate. I was still in the Navy. Remember, I had a year and a half to go.
Okay.
So I came home and. They knew I was coming, but they didn't know exactly when. I wasn't sure. I don't think.
Okay.
So my mother had a job in town, and I came home. There was no one at home, so I went to her office and said hello.
Quite a shock, I'm sure.
But they had heard, I guess, stuff from the Commodore.
Right.
family.
They probably had a lot more information than most other families
Yeah,
had
yeah.
because of that.
And the Commodore, he knew more than I did about, what was going on too.
Right,
I
sure.
so-
So, say future generations down the road, your great 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 grandchild one day is going to hear about your wartime service. What would you like a future generation to know about your wartime experience? There was one thing that you could tell them about it.
Well, even our imaginations as to what how terrible things can be don't fully encompass the entire experience. And the experience has many rewards as it has problems. You gotta learn to. I gotta learn to recognize the rewards from the wider understanding of the world and myself. And imagination is more fearful than the actual experiences themselves.
Right.
A lot of times.
The unknown.
Yeah. Because once you do get into a life-threatening situation, which I've had to look at later, just keeping your head and going through it is the best way. Vietnam staying, just doing my job, stay healthy to do it too.
Is there anything else you'd like to document about your time in the service that we haven't talked about today? Anything else you'd like to talk about?
I'll probably think of something again.
Well, on behalf of the Americans in Wartime Experience, I'd like to thank you for your service. I'd like to thank you for sitting down and speaking with me today. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, sir.